Thank you all for joining us this evening for the fourth installment of the Lodge 2 interview series. Joining me this evening is actually a 2-for-1 special. We've got Brother Seth Lavelle and also Brother Pete Lavelle, his father, talking to us about their experiences in Freemasonry in general and this lodge in particular. So, Seth, would you like to start, I guess, and tell us what brought you to Freemasonry and why you gravitated toward our lodge in particular?
So, honestly, this is one of the questions that was asked to me a lot on why I decided to join. Primarily, it was because of the fraternity aspect of it. I noticed after I became a Freemason, I ended up meeting quite a lot more people, as well as with my job. There's quite a few Masons, surprisingly. In this lodge specifically, it was the lodge that my father was in. So it would have been the best choice because I really did not know any of the other lodges at that point. But yeah, no.
Were you familiar with Freemasonry before joining the lodge? I mean, obviously your dad was a member of our lodge and some other lodges as well, but were there any other, was that how you were introduced to the organization?
Just about, yeah, that's just how I was introduced to it.
Okay. Yeah, because I know even before you became a member, you actually volunteered with us in some of our charity events, like when we were volunteering at the Grace Cafe at Arch Street United Methodist Church next door. So that was kind of I guess that was the first time that I saw you participate in the lodge events too.
Yep.
So, yeah, Brother Pete Lavelle, worshipful master. I guess obviously you brought your son because you obviously had great aspirations for him and you thought the lodge was a great fit. But how did you join, or how did you find this lodge?
So I found this lodge. I took a break slightly from Freemasonry for a while to raise my children. Took that time, and it was a benefit, and it helped out. Got two great boys. My journey in Freemasonry started when I was extremely young, and I grew up in North Philadelphia, and I would always go past the Prince Hall Grand Lodge up on 1 North Broad Street. And I was like, what is that building? What is that symbol? And people were telling me that, oh, it's just a guild for architects. Didn't think anything of it. I was kind of a rebellious kid. One time I got in trouble and I was sent down to the principal's office, and I actually saw the Masonic ring that the principal was wearing. So didn't even think about it. And then going through life, even when I was in the military, I saw people with Masonic rings, didn't pay any attention to it. And then when I lived in California, I didn't realize that there was a Masonic lodge that was about a mile away, and I would go past there. So when I was there, I took a look at the fraternity. I was, okay, what is this symbol that keeps popping up? And then that's how my journey started into Freemasonry. And getting into Lodge 2, it was through another brother who invited me to come to, I believe it was your Grace Cafe or the Ronald McDonald House at that point. He said, you know, your kids are older, you may want to come here and take a look at that. And as I was a member of another lodge, which I really couldn't make out to, and that's how I ended up coming into Lodge 2.
Cool. Yeah. So I guess also the fact that we were doing some volunteer activities also was a factor that kind of drew you in as well.
That's correct.
Yeah, I guess speaking to, so you joined the fraternity when you were younger. Seth, you obviously joined like the moment you could, right? I guess like through of your own volition, of course.
Yes, I believe as soon as he turned 18, he signed a petition.
And with that, also, like your father, you're in the military as well. Have you noticed, I guess, a lot of members of the craft are in the military? Like, I don't know if you wear any sort of regalia, rings, or whatever that they can kind of identify you, and they've like, how is that translated in your experience serving?
Usually there's times I'll wear my square and compass ring here and there. But a lot of us, it's kind of like you kind of find out that they're a Mason usually by like some tidbits here and there. For example, my previous command master chief, so the head honcho for the enlisted side, he was a Freemason. I still remember when I first got to my command, he noticed the ring, and he gave me our little greeting for that, right? And it kind of surprised me until next thing you know, I find out that a few other of my colleagues are also Freemasons as well, and my previous chief was also one, so we had something slightly relatable.
So if I could interject on something there, when Seth was in boot camp, so kind of a funny story. So Seth had asked me, Dad, can you send me a Masonic Bible? So I said, okay. So I called down here to Grand Lodge, and then they did a gift shop, and the person that was working there just shipped it out immediately for me. So in boot camp, they check all your mails coming in. So it's obviously in the package. So you have to open it up in front of, we used to call them drill sergeants. They're the RDCs in the Navy. And the RDC looked at the Bible and looked at Seth, was like, what are you doing with that? And Seth's like, what do you mean? He goes, well, because of that symbol. Well, come to find out, his RDC was a Mason. So the running joke is, maybe you got a little bit of a better deal during boot camp. I'm not sure. So maybe a little more lighthearted with you. So that was an interesting story with that. So.
Yeah, and I think that also speaks to a lot of the, I mean, that's one thing that I certainly appreciate about the fraternity is that through all walks of life, especially in the city where we have this big temple and this big presence, you'll encounter people by the wayside that you wouldn't even think were Masons until they see, you have a lapel pin or you have a ring or something, and then they treat you like you're a long lost brother from another time, and they'll, treat you with a generosity that you otherwise might not have received had they not known that you were connected with the fraternity. When you, I guess, since both of you joined relatively young, which is a bit of an anomaly for the organization, to say the least, correct?
Younger for me.
Younger, okay.
Younger.
You joined as soon as you could because you couldn't wait. You were like, but how has that shaped, like, how has your experience been in, I guess, the fraternity colored by your experience as, a Gen Zer?
So I will have to say it's a interesting mix, to say the least. Being a extremely young individual at the time, and then also at the same time when I joined Shrine, because why not? The youngest one. But it's interesting because I mean you can learn things from an older perspective. A lot of people I work with don't realize that I'm still in my younger 20s. I'm still technically under the Gen Z, because they would think I'm like more of a millennial because of the maturity and all that. But the only reason is because you get certain views. You can get a different view from somebody else who's like in their 40s, or then next thing you know, someone in their 70s. You can ask for advice on all that. I've met quite a few Masons who were like previous high-ranking officers. I was asking them for advice on how I would work something out and all of that. It's a really interesting mix, to say the least, especially when you have a certain younger demographic now. Getting older, and it's kind of like.
Present company excluded, of course.
Yes, of course.
And I guess that also speaks to the work that you're doing to try and recruit people from to our organization, Worshipful Master, in the sense of the cohorts that we've had for the last couple of months have pretty much been millennials and I think a couple Gen Z, partly because, members that are currently in the lodge who are under the age of 40 then recruit their friends to join. And so has that just been more an osmotic thing, or has that been like by design?
I wouldn't say by design. I would say me being young at heart. That's my viewpoint, because I'm a firm believer is you don't get old until you feel old. And I'm also a firm believer, the way I look at life is, humans are very complex individuals. And we can all learn from each other. It doesn't matter how old, how young. Everybody has a lesson to be brought, and everybody has a lesson to be learned. And with that, it just, I guess, just organically that has happened. And just trying to keep an open mind, and just talking to people just as they are, as they want to be talked to as people.
And would you say, I guess that's part of, I guess, a theme with your tenure as Worshipful Master is trying to, I guess, find elements that can appeal to all the different generations? Because right now, I think at this point, I think we could easily say we have 4 generations
We're doing very well.
represented
Yes, we're
in
doing
the
very well.
lodge at different, in different amounts. But at any given night, we probably have, I don't know, maybe 25% of each of those generations. Z, millennial. Well, millennial would probably be a little higher. Gen Z would be a little lower. But we also have representation, obviously, from Gen Xers and then Boomers as well. And I don't know. I mean, visiting other lodges in the district and also around the Commonwealth, I guess we're a little unique in that respect.
Yes, I would say, but it's unfortunate, like looking at our fraternity, where you see lodges and it's an older generation, and my question, and I look at that, and every time I look at something with the lodge, it's like, so what is the good aspect and what is the challenging aspect? And I understand in certain areas it's very challenging to try to get young people involved. Granted, we are in the city, so we do have a lot of young people. But traveling throughout, and even in certain sections of the city, there are a lot of older generation. And my view is, how do you get people involved? How do you get the older generation and the younger generation to be involved in the lodge? And if you're only catering to one generation and not the others, it's going to die. And I always look at the challenges to rise above the challenge and see what we can take the best parts, just like when I got married, take the best parts of both cultures and bring them into the marriage.
So I guess you can also say that it's reflected in the types of events you're having. I mean, in addition to we have our stated in our extra meetings, we have volunteer events. We also have the regular meetings that we have at the restaurant for ritual rehearsal, which is in Fishtown, which tends to skew a little younger. That in terms of that neighborhood and that demographic, it's quite a bit more vibrant. So I think that also kind of helps putting ourselves, like, we're willing to meet in different locations at different times for different functions, and not everyone will come to everything, but certain people will come to certain events, but depending on what appeals to them most. I guess my next question is, as far as in your time, so you've been with us for how long?
Going about
3 years? Okay. And this is, I guess, kind of a loaded question, but what do you think you've learned most about the fraternity? Like, how has the fraternity shaped you in terms of a person before you joined versus now, in terms of what impact it's made, would you say?
I'll probably say the way how it honestly shaped me is I've been to a few other countries, so I've also visited their lodges. When you go, like, when you're in the service, you go overseas, you see certain things, but you only see it from that aspect. You don't see it from another aspect. Until if you have that brotherly connection, you know a few people over there who have been to those lodges. You visit those lodges, you communicate, talk to them. You can find out a lot about that area that you're in, the different types of lifestyles and all that. Especially since growing up in the U.S., we have it a lot better than people who are in those countries that I've been to, and just seeing it from their eyes or having it from their perspective, it's an interesting wake up call, because you're like, oh, you took this and that, for example, you took it for granted. Now, I mean, you kind of understand, like, oh, this is how it is, and you kind of go from there. Personally, I think it kind of opened my eyes, made me a little bit more open-minded towards people's ways of thinking and their different walks of life, especially since you meet so many different types of people within the fraternity.
No, that definitely makes a lot of sense. I know a lot of people who visited other countries and other places, and they definitely appreciate kind of that familial aspect also when they're interacting with people that they otherwise wouldn't have encountered, but they see, I mean, we are kind of an international lodge too, so it kind of facilitates that. But yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. So I'm going to get, I guess, a little bit more personal in the next couple of questions because of the dichotomy of father, son, both being members of the same lodge. So I guess I'll start with the more awkward question first for Seth, which is how do you feel that now you're in the same lodge room as your father, who is now also your brother, since we are all fraternal brothers?
I can answer that, but
It's when when it was brought up to me, I was like, oh, I didn't fully understand it until I actually came in. Um, it's I mean we have a lot more we can relate a lot more, especially now you understand like how Freemasonry as a whole actually works. Since of course you only get so much information outside, and then of course when you have your father and he can help you out with certain questions, you know how to tie a tie, because honestly I did not know how to tie a tie until I had to wear a suit. So it's an interesting feeling, but I mean either way he's still my father, he's still my old man at the end of the day. But yeah.
I'll answer that to the point of like, with us doing Taekwondo, the only time that you're allowed to hit dad is when we're sparring. And that's it. So, but I also look at him like, yeah, but remember, I'm still your brother, so you can't harm me that much. So, and it is interesting to have that father-son interaction, to be father-son, brother to brother. I mean, I was always even with brethren in the lodge, I still had that kind of fatherly outlook and just sitting in the East, and then, but also realizing that the fact that they are my brother, just like my son is my brother. And as a father, I look at it with the son, like certain secrets he comes to me, I got to keep the secrets. Even sometimes when it's going to affect when I have to talk to mom. So, but now to brother, I have to ensure the fact that secret definitely does not make it to mom. So,
I guess this next question is for you, Brother Pete, in the sense of, so you conferred degrees to your son. I think it was the first and the second, or just the first? I know you did the initial.
I did the first.
You definitely did.
Yeah, I did the first, and I guided for the second.
So how was that in making your son a Mason? How was that experience?
You get this emotional rush. Not as bad as when I mentioned to the lodge when my son was leaving me and going into the military. But it's an emotional rush because you're looking down and you see your child that you saw from day one, and then now they're taking the obligation to become a Mason, and that is a big step in life. It's because now you're getting involved in an organization that's so much bigger than you, and it's going to open up and broaden your world a lot more, from that aspect. And so it's kind of like a sad but joy at the same time. So try to hold back the tears when you're doing this, and you rejoice knowing the fact that you're giving, that I was giving my son an opportunity.
And it was an important rite of passage too, that you wanted to share, not only with the lodge to experience that too, but it's always a very powerful, visceral moment when you see multiple generations within the same family joining the lodge. But I think it's more especially powerful when a father is initiating their son into the fraternity. It's great, and that's why we're happy to have you and explore this topic together, because it is, although it's not entirely uncommon, it's certainly very powerful when it happens, particularly in a lodge, and we're very grateful that you were able to share that experience
Thank you.
with us. So with that, I think that concludes today's installment of the Lodge 2 interview series. So thank you all for joining me and joining us, Brother Seth Lavelle, and also our Wishful Master, Brother Pete Lavelle, Past Master. And stay tuned for the next exciting installment. Hope to see you soon.